Hey guys, um, Nate asked me to put together a quick thing on a logo and why it's important. And so my background is branding. So I work at Resound right there. And we do branding for companies, create logos. And a big part of what we do is we are, the focus is what's true about a company, what's true about a brand, and then we say, okay, well, what's true values, personality traits, and then we write a brand story, and then we create verbal guidelines, visual guidelines, logos, websites, and things like that. And so, when it comes to a logo, there are a couple of things to consider. So the first thing to consider is that, so first of all, why does a church need a logo? And a church needs a logo because it needs to be identified. That's one of the main things. But what do you show with your logo? So there are a couple of things you show with your logo. You show distinctives. So every church should be about the Word of God, right? But not all of them are. So one of them is show that we're about the Word of God. What are our values and personality traits of the culture that need to come out? If you want to go no personality at all, that's impossible, because any choice, any creative choice you make with the logo is gonna reflect some kind of personality. So it's best to figure that out. A lot of personality traits can be like, and we can talk about that. But a logo can show good things and it can show bad things. And a lot of logos show bad things without people realizing it. And it reflects badly on the brand, even though the brand doesn't really believe those things. A brand isn't a logo. A brand is who we are, right? It's the truth about us. And so it's like identity. Basically, think of branding like this: a good name is better than riches. So now what you're trying to do is say, okay, well, what does our name represent? What does it look like? And so you can show, creativity with your logo. You can show curiosity. You can show solidness, groundedness, rootedness. You can show strength. You can show agility. You can show a lot of these things with the logo. One of the things I see a lot of churches do is show cluttered thinking, right? When I look at a lot of logos, I'm just like, okay, the logo makes them look like they're cluttered. They can't decide. They're not simple. They're very complicated, and they haven't figured out who they are yet. And so it's like an immature culture, right? Even though the culture might be mature, they just don't know anything about how to visually communicate that yet. They haven't figured that out yet. And so it looks like maybe it looks like it reflects on the outside. The visuals reflect complicatedness, right? And so, and cluttered thinking, which is not how I would characterize Magic Valley Bible Church. And so a lot of that comes with mixed line thicknesses, just complicated things, lack of simplicity, are some of the things that show that. So some of the words I would use to describe Magic Valley Bible Church: curious, reverent, accountable, convicted, with conviction, doing things with conviction, structural and thinking, right? Careful scholarship, things like that. And so, all right, so much for your brand abstracting these values and personality traits. Let's talk about differentiation, which is the second thing a brand or a logo needs to do. And this will be short because one of the ways we can think of this is, what are we not? We're not charismatic. We're not liberal. And so those are at least two things we're not. So how do we differentiate from other churches in the area? And one of the ways to do that is we could look at logos that are of the churches that are most close to us in theology, the five most close to us, and then pick those things apart and then say, okay, therefore, then we need to do this. So we could do something like that, which is a lot of fun for me. And then the last thing is it needs to be simple, because it needs to be usable. So it needs to be something you can stamp on things, where it's like, what if you had your mark, right? Your like shape, and then Magic Valley Bible Church written out. Well, what if you wanted to use that shape and you want to stamp it on the van? You want to stamp it on different things. You want to embroider it for the church. You may not want a complicated logo. So very simple is better. All right, guys, let me know if you have any questions. I'm available.